Hi, welcome to another video. So it's approaching Christmas 2015. Maybe you're going to buy yourself a new DSLR. So I want to discuss the difference, or is there really any difference between the entry-level Nikon D3100 D3200s and this body, which is 3 times the cost, Nikon D7100. Now this 7100 has got tons more features, but does it actually give you any more for your money with regards to picture quality? There's all this hype that they've removed some low power sensor. Well, I've put this 3200 to the test, compared it with this 7100, and in short, with regards to picture quality, I could hardly tell the difference. Yet this camera is 3 times the cost. So in case you're a novice to Nikon cameras and full frame and DX, I thought I'll show you the difference on the screen. Well, I'm not going to set up a video capture this just for this small segment. Right, so to the left, that's what everyone's going for nowadays, full frame camera. That's the size of the image sensor on the left, 36mm times 24. And that's meant to replicate 35mm film. So this APS-C, so C refers to the size, active picture sensor. I think some of them vary by 0.1 of a millimetre somewhere, but generally that's the APS-C size, and that's the full frame. And you can see that brought over to here, the full frame's roughly 1/3 bigger. But is it going to improve your picture quality? So I guess first of all, if you're only going to take snaps of this size and never get them blown up, then there's not even any point going to a 24 megapixel camera or even 14 megapixel. You could stick with a small cheap camera, just the point and shoot, because you will see no difference looking at pictures of this size. So I'll illustrate that. So this is my son 15 years ago, and that was taken with a Coolpix £300 camera back in 2000, and that camera cost me £300 and it was 1.3 megapixel. This is Tyler on a boat to France. That's Tyler on my R1, which I later trashed. That's Tyler at the airport, and that's Tyler at the golf driving range. If you're never going to get pictures blown up bigger than this, I don't see any point in spending close to £1,000 on a better camera. So that's just a regular photo, 1.3 megapixel camera, 15 years ago. Right, so this first picture here, was it 12 by 8, I believe, 12 by 8. That's taken with a Nikon D3100, 14 megapixel, with a standard kit lens, 18-55mm. Had it on aperture priority, zoomed in as close as I can go, and you can see the background slightly blurred. But it's 14 megapixel, blown up to this size, and you can see all the hair detail blowing in the wind, and I was happy with that picture. This photo was this Nikon D3200 with a 70-200mm f2.8 Nikon lens. That lens is about £1,500 new, get them for about £800 second hand. So zooming in, I was able to blur out the background. So that's the difference between the Nikon D3100 and the 3200, but with the 3200 with an expensive lens. If I show you these photos here, there's a close-up of the Nikon D3100 with the kit lens, 18-55mm. This is a close-up of the Nikon D3200 with a £1,500 lens stuck on the end of it. So if you don't zoom in, you're not going to blur out the background. So that was that £1,500 lens with Amber in the garden. And you can see here I zoomed in a bit more, and I think there's a washing line and tree in the background. And then using that full 200mm, zoomed in there, totally blurs out the background. So totally blown out. But it has nothing to do with the camera, that was all the lens. If you're after photos of blown out backgrounds, you need to concentrate on the lens, not the camera. You could get this effect on the standard Nikon 3100. If you don't want to blow it up any bigger than 12 by 8, I see little point in upgrading from the 3100 because it took superb photos. So having this photo, you can see it's nice sort of greeny yellow background. Her cheeks are nice and rosy. Had it blown up even further, I forget the size, so 18 by 12. So 18 by 12, you can see the outside is darker and her cheeks aren't as rosy. I think that's the production on the photograph printing, so I'm a bit disappointed. But so that's a Nikon D3200 with that expensive lens, so as I say, blown out. But unfortunately, in blowing it up from that size to that size, I've lost some of the colour, but that's down to the printing company. If I zoom you in, so that zoomed into that poster, you can see her eyes in focus. There's no pixelation on any of the picture. So this picture here, just scenery, it's actually Derwent Reservoir, just to the west of Sheffield. That's what they tested the Barnes-Wallis bouncing bomb. The reservoir's half empty at the moment. That was the Nikon D3200 with an 18-140mm lens. And these two pictures in the middle is actually in Turkey, so we had plenty of bright sunlight. She was wearing a pink dress, as you can see, so we've got a lovely contrast between the dark green background and the pink dress, so they're going to look nice straight away. But these two photos were taken with the full frame Nikon D700 with, again, the 2.8 lens. It's a 14 megapixel camera. It was at 14-16 megapixel. The D700 did give you nice creamy looking pictures. The algorithms for the colour control and everything was just right with that camera. So that's the full frame. So the trouble is with comparing all these photos, this pink dress is always going to look vibrant compared to this blue dress. But generally overall, with this 3200 kit lens, 3200 expensive lens, and down the bottom 3200 expensive lens to blow out the background, and then Nikon D3100 with a Nikon 70-200mm f2.8. So getting back to these cameras, Nikon D3200 is smaller and lighter and this than the 7100. But what I especially like about the 7100 is you've got two memory cards. So if one fills up, it can overflow to the other, or you can record video to the other, or RAW to the other, or you can copy the image to both cards for backup. So it's got two memory slots. That's an important feature. They've all got similar functions with regards to manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, program. This has got scene selection, which I think is a bit of a gimmick. It's got effects, which is certainly a gimmick. This U1 and U2, so they're user functions. You can set up like ISO, shutter, aperture, and save it to user 1 and user 2, that sort of stuff. They've all got auto. They've all got HD video. This 7100's obviously got the LCD screen on top, and it's got two thumb wheels, so it does make it easier to swap the ISO, aperture, shutter with the two thumb wheels instead of going back to here, turning on this display, and running down the menus. What I'll do, I'll put on the screen an apple tree in my back garden, one taken with this 3200 and then one taken with this 7100, and I really couldn't see, it was hard to tell the difference. The 7100, the tree was slightly greener, and the 3200 a slight blue tint compared to this, but you know, for the money I think I could have easily stuck to the 3200. I thought I was going to get better quality images moving from the 3100 to the, which is 14 megapixel, to the Nikon D3200 24 megapixel, and really didn't see much difference, so I could have stuck with my Nikon D3100 and stuck an expensive lens on if I want that blown out background. You've probably seen on some of the other reviews, you've got all these rotary switches down here, just for as far as I'm concerned. As far as photography goes, some of these are gimmicks. But so you've got the normal mode, continuous shoot low, continuous shoot high, quiet mode, timer mode, mirror up. And then obviously this 3200, this rotary switch is on the other side. This is only mono audio, not stereo. If you're recording video, this is stereo. Yeah, they both do 1080 video. This is only something like 25 frames. To get the 50 and 60 frames, you actually have to crop the image down. So both of these cameras do 1080 video, but if I show you on this movie settings, on this 7100, click OK, frame size and rate. So the standard 1920 by 1080, so that's full HD, but 30 frames progressive scan. And if you look, the 60 frames and 60i and 50i blanked out because you cannot get 1920 by 1080 60i or 50i with that full size image. You have to go into the image sensor and crop the size down to get the 50 and 60i. So in that sense, this is no better than the 3200. I'll show you what I mean. So go into image size, not that one, image area. So that's the standard DX, 24 by 16. And remember that was the size of the image sensor compared to the full frame. So 24 by 16, that will give you your 30 frames. If you reduce it even smaller, so 1.3 times crop, so 18 times 12, go OK. Then go back to movie settings. So frame size and frame rate. See, now we've cropped the image even smaller, then we can get the 1920 by 1080 60i or 50i. It says 60 and 50 interlaced, which personally I don't see are any worse than the progressive scan. So these are interlaced and a P for progressive scan. And you look down there, reduce the size, you go 60p, 50p, but at 1280 by 720. So overall the 7100 has got hundreds more features over the 3200, but as with regards to picture quality, it's got the smallest edge on the picture quality. But I have to say the focus seemed very quick on this camera compared to the 3200. But then obviously there's all the other cameras in between, so if you want just standard photos, you're never going to blow them up massive, and you don't need 2 memory card slots, I'd just stick to your 3200. But jumping up to the 7100, it's not going to improve your image quality by much. Now I said I'll show you the pictures on the screen comparing the 3200 to the 7100, so I'll do that now. So these are on my monitor at the moment. It was another overcast day because I'm in the UK and it's winter. So this is the D3200 with ISO 400, shutter is 125th of a second, f5.6. So that's the 3200. And you can see the leaves are slightly greener, slightly more contrast under the branches, I thought, but saying the focus was tend to be a bit quicker. This is the 7100, same settings, ISO 400, 125th of a second, 5.6, f5.6. So if I flick between the two, 3200, 7100, 32, 71. 32, 71. So the 71 seems slightly greener, or the 3200 seemed to have a blue tint to it. But it was a dark overcast day, or dull overcast day, There wasn't really anything to photograph outside, so just pointed at the tree. I was actually in the same position, and these photos were taken within a minute of each other. So there wasn't a huge difference. I was a bit disappointed because there's all this hype. They've removed some low pass filter from the image sensor. I think it's... Did it give me what I was looking for? No, not really. So if you're just getting into Nikon cameras or DX and full frame, hopefully this video has explained the difference between the DX and the FX. It showed you some of the movie settings on the 7100. So the movie settings doesn't do the 1560i using a whole image sensor, has to reduce the image. And going back to the smaller, cheaper, entry-level 3200, didn't really see many benefits over the 3100. The image quality wasn't any crisper as far as I was concerned, and the proof is in the pudding. I've got these photos blown up. Yes, this D7100 full frame, the images happen to be nice and creamy, but that's using the 2.8. That's using the f2.8 lens, 70-200 in Turkey with brilliant sunshine. Nice palm trees in the background. So those images always going to look better. She had the nice vibrant pink dress on. These were done here in the UK, but if you're looking for the blown out background, then spend your money on the lens. This was the Nikon f2.8 70-200mm, and that's versus the standard kit lens 18 and 55. There's nothing wrong with that image. Depends, are you looking for the blown out background or not? That super blown out background, vibrant colours, but as I say, I think with the 700 full frame, 14 or 16 megapixel, I forget which, the D700 did seem to have everything just sweet. But conversely, with the 3200, nice scenery, nice blue sky, nothing wrong with that image or these images. And these taken with a cheap Tamron lens. And finally, that big poster that was taken with the Nikon D3200, the f2.8 70-200mm zoom, zoomed in to get the blown out background, but I'm not happy with the colour on this bigger print. Might get in touch with the printers, see what they can do. So if you've got an extra few £100 and you want some of the gimmicks and some of the extra features, then yes, it's certainly worth spending the extra money on the 7100. At the moment, this 7100 retails for over £600 for just the body. This 3200 you can get for about £240 with an 18-55 lens. So if you're just after good photos, then there's nothing wrong with a 3200. I personally don't see any advantage getting the 7100. Yes, it's got a ton of extra features. Yes, you can get the high definition video 1560i, but you've got to reduce the image size, which is crap. The dual memory card feature is a clever idea. If one card fills up, you've got the second, or if you're at a wedding shoot, photo shoot, and you can't afford to have one memory card fail, you can back it up on the second. So that is a good idea, and maybe, yes, worth paying the extra money for. That's certainly a good idea. Can't doubt that. A convenience factor, having this LCD screen on the top, use a lot less power than this colour TFT. You probably run on a battery just this screen for years without having to charge them up. But with this LCD screen and the two knobs, it's quicker to adjust the ISO, shutter, aperture, the f-stops for bracketing, which is down here. So it has got a ton of extra features, but certainly costs the extra money. Isn't really going to give you any better picture quality, in my humble opinion. So it's all down to your budget. Do you spend the extra money on the 71 or stick with the 32? I'll leave it to you. Thank you for watching.